All right, what's up, boys? So I have a Ask Diaphone part section of my Discord where you can basically post any question like a form, and I will respond to it. However silly, however smart, and I usually do this off stream, but in the goal to make content as much as I can out of my life, I will now start producing content out of this, which means we'll start with the top thread, which is about studying top level players. The question basically says, let's say I want to study Mena RD or Sonic or Ryu, and we don't play the same characters. What are the types of things I can be learning from how they play that aren't like tech and combos? Now, I think tech and combos are actually the majority of what's essential, right? And when I'm personally looking like to copy a top level player, it all depends almost. It depends on like the type of game and how technical it is. So for example, Third Strike, I would not look at a top level Yun and copy their combos, because the combos they're doing are so far removed from where my skill is as a player. And same thing with tech. Like, I'm not really looking for those things. If I were to like study the tech and combos of someone, I'd be studying it like someone a good amount above my level, but not high level, to see like what's the next step of progression, the next logical step of progression in combos and tech that I can take my gameplay to, right? Now, if it's a game like Street Fighter 6 or a game that's less technical, I think you can copy the combos of the top players, because most of them are like pretty basic. They're combos that from like mid-level to high level to top level, everyone's doing like similar combos, right? Tech, on the other hand, I think is a little bit different, right? So like, let's say I'm studying an opponent and I want to see like what are their habits, or like what do I need to look out for. Tech is one thing I look out for, because if you've never seen something for the first time, like, and they do a setup or they do something that you've just never seen, it's really hard to know how to counter it, especially if it's like on the gimmicky end, where if you know the counter, it's not actually that good. But if you don't know the counter, it becomes really, really strong. And so that's actually one of the main things I look out for when I'm studying another top level player, is the type of tech or like the things that I've never seen before. And then I'll like usually lab out those situations or try to figure out like counters to what they're doing, right? The second part of the question, but okay, I guess, what are some types of things you can learn from how they play? I think the big thing you can learn that's not tech and combos are option selection. So it's like, what kind of moves are they favoring in neutral, right? So if it's like a specific matchup, and let's Street Fighter 6, you're Aki and Gal's throwing fireballs. How are they choosing to get around the fireballs, right? You have multiple different ways as Aki to get around the fireballs. Which ones are they choosing, and at what distances, right? Are they choosing to play patient? Are they choosing to, walk and parry? Are they choosing to, use the crouch under the fireball? Are they choosing to dive over the fireball? Are they choosing to jump? Are they choosing to contest with their own fireballs? It's that sort of stuff on like how they approach a very specific matchup that I think is one of the important things to look out for, right? And the other thing would be like just options in defense and offense, right? So like they get a knockdown, what do they do? Right? Do they go for a shimmy? Like, how do they shimmy? What normal do they shimmy with? Are there any other options they're choosing between just strike, throw, and shimmy? Right? Are there like delayed options they're doing? Or is there certain, I don't want to say tech, but like options that a typical player would not do, and then try to figure out why they're doing it, right? So there's a lot you can learn from replays, and to me, it's you just gotta figure out like what the next logical step is in advancement, and where you're at, and like what the lowest hanging fruit is to help you improve, and then go from there. All right, so the second part of the question, I think maybe something like how they adapt to their opponent. I feel like adaptations are really hard to gauge, because you have to, like, unlike like when you're fighting an opponent, you just have to think about like what they're thinking, because you already know what you're thinking. It's really hard to get into the mind of both players, right? So to me, instead of like trying to figure out how they adapt and like how they over the long run, like the meta game between two players, to me, it's like I like studying how someone approaches a new player for the first time, because how you approach a new player is going to be very similar to how they approach you, right? And by new player, I mean like someone they've never fought before, because it's really hard to like gauge like, oh, these guys have played 20 different times, and the 19th time they played, Kakeru never tech the throw, so Mena RD is going to tech throws. Like, it's really hard to like conceptualize that, where I feel like you can learn a lot more if you study like random rank replays, or you study like how they play against some random person they've never fought, and like why they choose certain options on their layer 1 and what their layer 1 is, so you can take advantage of it, right? Would it be beneficial to watch how they fight for someone in pools versus how they play another top level player? The issue is like how they fight someone in pools. I do think it's slightly better because it's going to be closer to their autopilot, and they're just going to like throw out habits. But at the same time, like you don't want to see them fight someone too weak because they might just be trolling or sandbagging or like not actually have to use the full level of their game plan. So to me, it's like I think like random rank matches are the best, the best to snipe someone, if that makes sense. Or let's say you're preparing to fight someone in bracket where the things you're looking, basically that it's like tech, making sure there's things that I've always seen. Try to notice opponents' habits. If they just like very, very broad habits, not like, all right, on the third knockdown, this guy always goes for a DP. It's more of like, okay, this guy likes to, after drive, he likes to favor drive rush throw or something like that, right? So it's like, it's better to press against this guy's drive rush than your normal player. Like very, very broad habits, just so you kind of know like what they're thinking. I don't know, pretty broad question, but I think a lot recently, as I feel like a lot of my improvements have come just from solidifying my execution autopilot. That definitely happens, especially when you're like newer to a game. I feel like solidifying, it's like, for example, when I was playing Third Strike, solidifying my execution autopilot was basically what I focused on like during the second half of the 1 week challenge I was doing. And I think my weaknesses is in quickly adapting. Recently Meta slipped Kakeru, but that's a long time matchup for both of them. Yeah, so I think those are kind of two different types of adaptation, right? Because like Meta knew what he was going to do coming into Kakeru, right? That was more of because they've played in the past and, you know, he studied the footage, where realistically you're not really doing that because at the top level, it's more important to focus the players. But if you're not at top level, you don't have to focus the players because there's just too many people at your level to focus on, right? So I'd say, I guess my recommendation here would be to like, so adapting happens for a reason, right? And the way to me to quickly adapt to an opponent is to play people that have done similar shit, right? So let's say you fight a Ken that always does EXDP or crouch medium kick on wake up, right? And if you've never fought a Ken like that before, that shit is going to be so hard to deal with. Because you're gonna be like, what do I do? Do I meaty? Do I throw? Do I just back off and not do Oki? And then they're gonna completely mindfuck you, and then you'll just die, right? But if you've seen that kind of Ken before, and then you recognize like the next time you play them, that probably the best option is just to, you know, do like a crouching shimmy or something, so you defend against both options, and then you can kind of blow that kind of gameplay up, right? So it's really hard to adapt to those strategies in the moment if you've never seen it before, because like coming up with solutions on the fly is like really, really hard. And if you're going to do that, it's like, it's going to be for like one particular thing. But ideally it's like you fought those kind of players before, and then you already know the layer 2, and then you can start adapting after that. Right. But to me, it's like the more built out your flowchart is, the easier it's going to be to adapt, because you can just autopilot your adaptation basically. Right. Like if someone's always teching your throws, what are you going to do? You're going to autopilot the shimmy. If you're a new player, you don't know how to shimmy, like there's nothing to adapt to, right? Because you don't know how to shimmy. You're not just going to like magically come up on the spot. Maybe I should shimmy. Like I'll invent shimmy from scratch, right? Like you can't just reinvent the wheel to randomly adapt. So yeah, to me, like the easiest way to adapt is practicing it, and also like building out your flowchart so diversely that your flowchart goes longer to them than their flowchart, and you can, how do I say, like your focus on having your autopilot beat their autopilot, and then even if it doesn't, or like let's say your autopilots are matched, then you can start to hyper focus like the specific areas where you need to adapt. Like let's say they're jumping a lot, then you can like focus on that, and it's really easy to disguise that because your autopilot's really good in other places, right? Yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah, your autopilot should include adaptations, right? That's what I mean, like a branching flowchart. Like if you have multiple different options on your flowchart that cover like the most common responses to your most common layer 1 activities, then I think adapting is a lot easier. So, all right. Let me know if I should answer more of these questions. Like, share, subscribe, take care, y'all. Peace.